Yes, I'm very sorry that Claire Perry couldn't make it, but as you probably know, there's quite a lot going on in Parliament right now. I ducked out of the leader's statement to come here. It was getting a bit hot in there, hot air and energy being expended. But Claire has given us a statement that I said that I'd read out, so if you'll bear with me, I am actually going to read from the sheet of paper. But she's very sorry that she can't be here tonight. So what she said is, in this week of COP, it's clearer than ever that we must maintain momentum on climate action and push ourselves to be more ambitious and innovative. However, Christmas provides us with the opportunity to pause and reflect on our successes. Over the last year, the Sustainable Energy Association has been one of the most progressive and proactive industry bodies, driving growth in the low carbon building sector. And I'm sorry that I cannot be here to join you this evening to celebrate what has been an excellent year. It's been a year in which we have laid a strong foundation for the work to come. In 2018, the government committed to delivering the building's mission launched by the Prime Minister earlier this year. We also saw 2 milestone documents published this week, setting out the steps for heat in buildings off the gas grid and for heat networks. But there's always more to do, and looking forward to next year, my department will continue to work with industry and consumers to develop a framework that drives clean growth, and I know that the Sustainable Energy Association, with its ongoing contributions to a range of important policy areas, will be a valued contributor to this discussion. For now, I hope you will take this moment to pause and celebrate a fantastic year. So I think we should give yourself a round of applause. Because it's always good to look at the good things, isn't it, and not only to focus on the negative things, something I definitely always try to set out with a positive view, because I think positivity can get us a great way forward. And I'm going to talk to you about my 10-minute rule bill in a minute, but you probably don't know very much about me, but since I've been in Parliament, my background actually is very environmental, and so having arrived in Parliament, I determined that I would work in many of these areas as much as I could. So I have worked a great deal on things like, believe it or not, soils, and made a speech about this last week, and I'm mentioning that. You might wonder why I'm mentioning that, but it has a very direct link to climate change. And one of the big issues, we've touched on climate change tonight, which is so important, one of the really big areas where we could reduce our carbon emissions, or we could sequester a lot of carbon, is if we get our soil health right. And the erosion of our soils is a huge issue, touched on now, thank goodness, by David Attenborough as well. About half of our soils in the east of England, for example, will be considered unproductive in 10 years if we don't do something about soil erosion and soil health. So that's a sort of wider environment area where we can make a really big difference to climate change and emissions. And similarly, I made a speech earlier today for something called the Green Cities Initiative, which has just been launched, and that very much touches on developments and housing in our new green towns and garden towns, and Taunton is a garden town. We got the status a year and a half ago, and very pertinent to that is the kind of developments that we are building with the kind of properties in those developments. So actually all this green environmental stuff all links together, which is I think how I came to come to your exhibition in the first place, because it's all about sustainability, isn't it, and our future. So with all that in mind, I found myself doing a 10-minute rule bill, and the 10-minute rule bill has got quite a long title, as Lord Best told us, but it's very much about new clean tech and the opportunities that it provides us to cut down on our carbon emissions and actually to tackle climate change. And we know that all of these policies to tackle climate change are, they're really popular, but also they're really necessary. And we don't talk enough about how much money we're actually already saving as a result of cutting our emissions, but we don't talk enough about how much more we could save if we really did a great deal more about it. And that old trilemma of balancing out cost, carbon emissions and the security of supply could all be solved. And it turns out that measures to tackle climate change are doing all these things. They're saving us money on our energy bills, and they are reducing carbon emissions. So whilst the government's already doing a great deal on the budgetary side of energy, for example, the recent energy price cap that they brought in, that was to balance up the market where people felt to be paying too much in certain areas. Really, we could make even bigger cost reductions, which would actually come from private sector innovation. And I know there are a great many private companies in this area here tonight. And those companies are working on new clean tech. And the government's already made a big commitment in this area to promote innovative technology with significant investments in storage and offshore wind. But my bill goes further, and it was attending that exhibition back in March, hosted by the Sustainable Energy Association, that really highlighted how many cost savings could be brought about by some of the ingenious technologies that were on display there. So with the aid of the inimitable Ron, I put together my plans for the 10-minute rule bill. And the rule bill was really calling for a public consultation on new technologies so that companies could better demonstrate to government how their inventions could achieve all these objectives that I've been talking about. And then with a view to that happening, then that's stimulating even more investment and even greater invention. So that was the idea behind it. It seemed to go down quite well, and I had lots of other colleagues supporting it cross-party, which we always need. And then since then, I have been to meet with Claire Perry to discuss the 10-minute rule bill and to urge her to initiate this consultation, because that's our next step. And I'm optimistic that she is supportive. So that's all I can say for now. But I was just going to mention a couple of the technologies that I mentioned in the 10-minute rule. Well, there are absolutely masses of them, but there are two that I think are particularly interesting because they demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. One is stored passive flue gas, which improves the efficiency of domestic hot water performance of A-rated condensing gas boilers. And this could save the average punter in their house £100 a year if it's fitted into every home. And if that's per home, but if it was fitted into every home, it could save us an incredible 2.6 million tonnes of carbon dioxide each year. So that would not only be cutting down our bills, it would be reducing emissions. And then I like to move on to the snappily named device. I think the people behind it might be here in the room. Is another a device related to gas systems, and it's called Metrology for Acoustic Recognition of Gas Optimised Services. It's quite long-winded, so for short it's called Margo. Thank goodness. And this is a new smart billing system which can more accurately measure the gas supplied to, and therefore the carbon dioxide produced by, the gadget. And if it was widely installed, it could reduce reported household carbon dioxide emissions by 10%, which would equate to households saving 4% a year on their gas bills. And when I think to the efforts we went to on that energy price cap bill to save an average household, well, absolutely maximum £100, but in many cases less. These things, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, that's good, but all these things could be in addition. So I really hope that our consultation gets underway on clean tech. I definitely think that if it did, it would help to stimulate further investment and then further tech, all things that will help towards lowering fuel bills and cutting emissions. And of course it will benefit not just my constituents in Taunton Deane, because I've always got them at my heart, but of course absolutely all of us, and then the wider environment. And we are beholden to do everything we can to protect, nurture and enhance this wonderful world in which we live, and I think all of these things could help.